Hello and welcome to the Shadow and Soul Storytime podcast. I'm your host, Rayneen Thebeau, and the intention of this show is to share the lessons and the medicine that live within our everyday experiences. In this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about power. Another word that is floating around is shame, community, wounds, reclamation. Like, these are the feelings, these are the words that are swimming around inside of me. And so before we jump in, just this invitation to take a moment to more fully arrive in whatever way is best for you, whatever way most serves, and if nothing else, just taking a couple of deep breaths, bringing a little more attention, a little more awareness into the opening and the receiving, right? Because my intention of sharing everything that I share is that it pokes at something inside of you and helps you draw some parallel inside of you in your life. My invitation is to open, to receive whatever it is that's here for you, whether it's resonance or contrast or whatever. So, with all that being said, let's jump in. Let's see. This story starts, I want to say it starts with heartbreak. And this heartbreak is one of loss of community and real specifically a teacher. And without going into really any of the details of that, because ultimately that's not what's most important here, let's see what I do want to share about that. I'll share a little bit just about the relationship because I think it's important when I start to talk about these other themes. This teacher, this community was my first spiritual teacher. It was my first spiritual community. And what I want to point out is that for me, it was so much deeper than just a yoga teacher, just a yoga studio. I had dove in head first and deep into this ancient tradition and lineage and relationship of teacher-student, 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 and the passing down of information. And really had embraced what I hear described now as like the guru mentality. It was this sitting at the feet of one's teacher. And I don't want to say that I have so much love and reverence and gratitude for that tradition and that lineage and that path and that way of being in relationship, because I think it's so beautiful. And like many other beautiful things, there can absolutely be things about it that need purifying, because why? We're human. And the reason that I say that is just because it was just so deep for me. It really was. It was so deep for me. And because it was so deep, when it came to an end, it cut really deep, right? It really, really, really hurt. It was a very, very, very big wound. Now, as I start to move away from that relationship, from that community, from that wound, from that time, what happened for me while in this healing process, because there is this healing process that happens after something like that, there was also in some ways this stepping away from the practices too. So it wasn't just stepping away from this teacher, from this community. It was really the practices too. And in so many ways at that time, I think it's easy for this small little heart to just feel so broken about the loss of all the things. And especially now in hindsight as I look back, but eventually over that, over the coming months, approaching a year, I was able to start to see this silver lining. And for me, this silver lining was two things. One, starting to recognize the ways in which I had been giving my power away to this teacher. And again, this is kind of like that purification process of that like guru mentality, because as beautiful as that is, it totally does leave opportunity for this giving away of power and consciously or unconsciously taking of power. And so silver lining, I'm noticing like, oh wow, like I was giving away my power in a lot of different ways. That's one part of the silver lining. This other part of the silver lining was that in the creating distance between me and the practices and the traditions of that path, because of hurt, it ended up leaving room for more curiosity and more longing for other paths, for other teachers, for other practices. And so I kind of swam in these energies of healing and longing for about a year. And then let's see, where do I want to go with this next? So I'm swimming in these energies. I had, by the end of this time, really started like a seeking process of new teachers, new practices, new experiences, new traditions. I was just seeking for more. Like, what else is more out there? Because if you don't know too much of my backstory, I'll just say a little bit of this. I first really dove into yoga when I did my yoga teacher training in 2015. And what was crazy is at the time I jumped into it because really I was looking for continuing education, because I was working as a personal trainer and a group fitness instructor for a couple of years at that point. And so when I jumped in, I didn't know really what I was getting myself into. I was like, oh, this like gentle way of working with my clients and my students. And yes, I got that. And what I really got was like a path that nourished and awakened my soul in a way that I had no idea. I had no idea. And from that point, I dove in so intensely, because it was awakening me. It was transforming me. It was healing me. And even I can hear my language now, right? That's how I was feeling at the time. And now it's like, oh, still this, right? Can you see this giving away of power to the path? And at the time, I was to my teachers, to the community, it's healing me there. And now what I've come to realize too, over, another part of the silver lining is like, it's actually just, that's all me. Like, and the same is true for you too. So maybe this is a good pausing point of, what healing, what growth, what transformation have you experienced where you attribute it to something outside yourself? And no judgment, no shame, none. It's really just a curiosity of like, oh wow. Because the thing is like, no, it's actually you. It's actually you. It doesn't matter what teacher, what path, what tradition. Like it doesn't, right? Like here are these like the polarities of yes and. It doesn't. Because like, yes, the path, the teachers, the teachings, they absolutely were the support and the doors that I needed to access my own healing, transformation, reclamation, etc. And those things didn't do it for me, I did. And so it's the same thing for you. Really, truly, where do you attribute and give credit to outside yourself? And it's not that you can't give credit and that you can't give gratitude. It's just, do you also really understand, and do you give that credit and do you give that gratitude to yourself also, and understand that ultimately it's you. So I'll give you a second there, and I'll give myself a second. Be like, okay, now where do we want to go from here? Back to the seeking. So I'm seeking now. I'm seeking more, different, more. I was literally, this is funny. I was literally Googling like medicine woman. I was scraping through Instagram and Facebook looking for some medicine woman to go on retreat with, to go do some training with, to something. I was looking for a medicine woman. I was like, where is this old, wise, wrinkly, grayed medicine woman who is going to throw me into the wilderness where I can strip naked, roll around in the mud, and howl at the moon? Like, this is what I was craving. And I just kept finding nothing like that. Like, absolutely nothing like that. It was just, like, so not resonant. I was talking to a friend, like, asking, like, do you know of anything? And she's like, maybe it'll just find you. So I'd kind of given up the active seeking, and when I gave up the active seeking, the thing found me. And so I found myself at a retreat, and let me feel, what is it that most serves to, okay, a couple different things. I didn't know what to expect when I went to this retreat. It was not yogic, although, because I think the facilitators' skill set, tools, past, there's like some similar weaving. So it's like she was definitely speaking a language that I understood, and I was being introduced to new words, if that makes sense, new conversations. And because I had already developed so many beautiful capacities around tapping into self and psyche and shadow and the divine, when I got there, it was like just one more way that I hadn't yet experienced. And coming from the yogic background, which I can look at it and say like, oh wow, that's a very masculine, solar way of connecting with the divine, with myself. This was very much the match to that. It was the feminine. It was the lunar. It was the earthly to this like celestial, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I remember this moment where to myself it was like this remembering and this realization of, oh my gosh, like this is so simple. Like, this is so simple and so powerful. And it's like a remembering. There's so much freedom, like freedom. I feel like yoga is very like, at least the way that we tend to know it here in the Western world, it's kind of like, you know, even the most beautiful, flowy, dancey, quote unquote, feminine type class is still kind of like rigid and controlled and structured. And what I was getting introduced to was absolute freedom of the body, of my breath, of every single way that I can possibly connect with myself and with something greater. It was stunning. And it was exactly everything that I totally needed. And by the end of that retreat, although it's not what we were physically doing, I remember feeling like, God damn, like, my soul got exactly what I wanted, right? I was looking for that experience of going out in nature and rolling around in the mud and howling at the moon, and I feel like that's what my soul got to do. So coming back from that retreat, I was jazzed up because I was like, I have all these new tools, all these new practices, all these new ways of connecting, and this freedom. And here's another really big piece. It was so empowering because it was like, let me find the right words. Like, I just know this. Like, there's no technique necessary. No teachings necessary. Like, it's all right here. It's all right here. It's all right here. It's all here and accessible, right? Like, that was the main feeling I was left with. I was just so empowered. Now, let's see, where do I go next with this? So, this community that I now found myself a part, they host these share circles, these opportunities for the community to get together and just share their experiences on this path, which is really beautiful. And I get in there, and when I go into like anything like this, it's like you never know if you're gonna share or not. It's like if it arises, it arises, right? If anything, it's almost like I don't really want to, and when it does come, it's like and it came, and I just remember my heart was just like pumping, and like everything was like, okay, I need to speak. And the words that came out of my mouth in the share was basically that with this new way that I was really learning to embody and connect with, that I had found that medicine woman that I was looking for, that it was already inside me, that it was me, that I was the medicine woman that I was looking for. And I just remember feeling like so alive and so empowered and so expansive and so just like so expanded. Now, this is something that I want to talk about now, is that in life, I'll just say in life, it's not even on this path, it's just life. It's just the way that nature works. There's expansion and then there's contraction. You can't not have them both. We're just constantly expanding and constantly contracting. Expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. Just like the breath, right? The inhale, the expansion. And the exhale, the contraction. It's inevitable. Well, with one of the greatest expansions I'd had in a long time came one of the greatest contractions I'd experienced in a long time. And before I go on to this next piece, again, a pause, because this is about you. So just take a moment to feel. Is anything being stirred up yet? Especially now around this expansion and contraction piece. Just feeling. Because again, it's inevitable, right? Expansion, contraction. And what I've been learning is when I'm in the expansion to not be afraid of the contraction. And when I'm in the contraction, to so be okay to be there and to ask, what is it that's here for me? And so when I found myself in this really gnarly contraction, and let me see what is most serves to share here. Okay, so here's this piece, and it has to do with discernment, and it has to do with ego and soul. I was in a practice and feeling a lot of things, feeling all these very expansive, like I'm meant for this, I know this, just all these really like jazzed up, beautiful, true, with a capital T, exciting things. And then came this, what I thought at the time was a divine nudge or calling to reach out to the facilitator and the community that holds that space. And truthfully, even in my reaching out, it was kind of unclear of exactly what it was I was reaching out for. And although although it was beautiful, my words were beautiful, like I was offering gratitude, I was sharing excitement, like, it was fine. But when I look back now, I can be like, oh man, and this is what I know now as like a marker or a red flag, is a way I now help to discern things is this, bringing it back to this question of what is the intention here? Because if I had done that, I would have had to sit with it, and maybe I would have found what I ended up finding before and avoiding what happened. Because what happened was I received a lovely response. It was fine. But in the receiving of that lovely, fine response, I was tore up. I was feeling all sorts of ways. I was like feeling sticky, icky. Just like, I was feeling some sort of way. Let me see if I can find some other words. What I can say is that it is a feeling that I was somewhat familiar with. And I had said to my husband many times over many years, I don't understand why, or I don't know why, but I just hate when people don't respond to me. It's just such a pet peeve. Like, it just irked me. And I mean, I got responded to here, but it was that same kind of feeling. And so for the first time in all of these years, because it was one of those like kind of like low level annoyances that just like kind of occasionally happened, I never really thought too much of it. I didn't see it as the trigger that it was, and so I never used it as the opportunity that it was. Because here, this is what I'll say about triggers. Triggers are opportunities. They are opportunities. They're gifts. They really, really, really are. And they suck. They totally suck. They're super uncomfortable. All of the things. I totally understand the very humanness and realness of that. And I really believe and truly believe that they are gifts and doorways to our healing and growth and transformation. And so I'm now at the point where I'm like, okay, now I'm seeing it as what it is, and now I'm curious. And now I'm like, okay, there's something here. Let's dig in. Let's figure this out. And what I find is a couple of different things. Let's see, which first? So this contraction piece. Definitely a part of that, right? Coming from this big expansion, like, I am my own medicine woman, like, I found these ways of connecting, like, expansion. So now this contraction. And I'll say this too about the expansion. My being witnessed in a community, a new community, in a circle, for standing in my power, for standing in my fullness, my allness, my sovereignty. Now, just to rewind a little bit, where we started with the heartbreak, what catalyzed that breakup was a situation where I was standing in my sovereignty in a very, I'll say, like, public, but I mean just like I was being seen. I was very much being seen, standing in my sovereignty, my decisions, my opinions, all my beliefs, all of that kind of stuff. And even if I think back even further into like high school, we're not going to go into that story, but I'll say, like, there was an incident where I was in a circle of my peers where when I stood in my truth, where it did not go well. It didn't go well then in high school. It didn't go well here in this like spiritual community, my first one. And then here I am in a new spiritual community, in a new circle of women, standing in my fullness, standing in my allness, standing in my truth, standing in my sovereignty, reclaiming power. And I now know, looking back, that there was this little part of me that was like, no, like, no, don't do it, it's not safe. So that was definitely part of the contraction, was small self being like, God, absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not. I don't know that we're safe. I don't know that we're safe. I don't know that we're safe. And so when I look at what happened in my practice and my reaching out, I can now see a couple of different things. I can see that, let me find the words. And this stuff can be so slippery, right? It's the unconscious. It doesn't necessarily want to be known. But there was this part of me that wasn't sure if I was safe. And because so my egoical side was not sure if I was safe. And ultimately in that practice, what I found was that it disguised itself as my soul and prompted me to do this thing, to reach out. Why? Because I wanted to prove and see, are you safe? What does that really mean? Can we dig into that further? It was seeking validation. Okay. That's one part of it. And then this other part of it has to do with the power. As I am starting to reclaim more power, pick up more power, own more power, feel a little bit more okay with power, it was like, it's the same small self was like, I don't know if this is what we want. And again, a story from another time, because whether it was in this lifetime or in past lifetimes, the times I picked up my power, it didn't go so well. So, hey, here's this new teacher. Hey, here's this new community. Let's give our power to them. I think it might be safer if they have it. So looking to give away my power. And I'll just stop there for a moment, because those are two really big things. Those are two really big things to find. I'll say one more piece, because this is the piece that like most disturbed me, was that if ego was disguising itself as soul, then ultimately I was being manipulated by my egoical self to reaching out and seeking validation from others, which in it of itself, right? The intention, why was I reaching out to get something that I wasn't giving myself? That's manipulation. Subtle, it's sneaky, not, this crazy malicious thing, and it's manipulation. So to see how I was manipulating myself, to see how the small self was looking to manipulate others in order to give myself a thing that I wasn't giving myself, just like all of it. I mean, it's like so sticky, the insecurity, just everything, to see all this, to like uncover all of this in practice. I remember feeling absolutely disgusted. I was disgusted. I was like, oh, I was seeing something in the shadow. I was seeing something in the conscious that I had not yet seen. And it was so hard to see it. It was so hard to be with it. It was so hard to look at it. I was like, oh, this was like such an ugly part of myself. Just fucking gross. And in that moment, knowing this deep knowing from doing this work for all of these years, that my disgust, my shaming of myself is only going to push it further away. It's only going to create more separation. And so I'm like, okay, I can't shame it. I know that that's not going to help. It's just going to push it back into the dark. How can I let it be here with me? And how can I take it a step further than that and accept it and love it? And I'm going to be totally honest. Something that is coming up for me right now that I did not anticipate and had not quite connected the dots before, is that those two words, the accepting of it and the loving of it, are very much of the very first vikalpa that I ever found on this path with my teacher, this first spiritual teacher. So for those listening that maybe don't understand, have not heard the term vikalpa before, it comes from yogic philosophy. Vikalpa being this like unconscious fear, this unconscious truth, this unconscious desire of sorts. It's that which is in direct conflict to our soul's desire, for our soul's longings. And for me, what I found in my very first vikalpa was that I was afraid that I wasn't going, if I was my true self, because my soul's deepest longing for this whole path, all these fucking years, one of the greatest things that I've been working with is this deep longing to be myself, this deep longing to be full and authentic and just be myself. Like it hurts, like I wanted it so bad it hurt. And the vikalpa that I found that was in direct conflict was basically that that it was unsafe to be myself, to be seen, to be full, to be big, to be all of these things, because if I was, I wouldn't be accepted and I wouldn't be loved. And so now to kind of just, for the first time, kind of like just for me personally to make that connection here is like, whoa, like, okay, here's another layer to this whole story that makes so much sense. And on another side note, I swear I'll rein it back in, but on another side note, this is why I love sharing so much. And this is so much of why I created this podcast. It's so much behind the deep, deep longing to share in this way, because I know that it's medicine. It's medicine to share, because things just like they rise. Truth rises when we share, when we allow ourselves to be seen, when we allow ourselves to be heard. And then there's also medicine on the other side of that, receiving it, because it's like, whoa, what is that touching inside of me? And again, so maybe it's a perfect pausing point before we do jump back into our story, I swear, to just kind of pause and feel around, like, what is it that is being poked at inside of you? What is it that is bringing up emotions, your own stories, your own memories, your own thoughts? Like, what is it? And just give yourself a minute to just pause and feel that. All right, now let me feel. Where do we want to jump back in here into this story? I knew that I had to bring love and acceptance to this part of myself that I was disgusted by, that I was ultimately rejecting. But I really felt like I couldn't do it. Genuinely and truly in that moment, I did not feel like I could do it. I was so disgusted. I was so judgmental. I was rejecting myself. I wasn't accepting myself. I wasn't loving myself. I was shaming the shit out of myself. And again, I knew that that is not what served. And so I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. Not yet. Not right now. Anyway. So what I did was I invited something greater than me to come in. In my practice, I breathed in, I called in, I visualized something greater coming in, the divine coming in. And what came was very feminine essenced. It was very motherly. And as this energy came in, I saw it just scoop up that version of myself and just hold it and love it and fully accept it and not judge it and not shame it. It just, so much love and so much understanding that it makes me want to weep. Because it didn't care how quote unquote ugly that part of myself was. It didn't care that it was manipulative. It didn't care that it was insecure. It didn't care that it was trying to give away power. It didn't care anything. It didn't care about any of that shit. It didn't care about any of the things that part of myself had manifested, done, like nothing. It didn't give a fuck about any of that. It was just there to hold it and just there to love it and to see it and to feel it and to witness it and to fully accept it. And as this energy was doing all of this, holding this part of myself that I didn't feel I could, I was broke wide open. Like, just broke wide open. And then in that breaking, in that crack, enough space for a softening inside of my own self, to be able to look at this part of myself and just like be okay with it. To like actually not even just accept it, but to actually love it and to have some actual compassion for it, with left room for understanding. so understand why that part of myself is and was, because it's had so many experiences. It's just trying to get through life, and it's just trying to do its best to protect you and to keep you safe. Where it becomes an issue is that these ways that it used to have to protect you, the ways it had to protect you, the ways it had to protect you in the past, those ways no longer actually serve. In fact, they hold you back. And we won't be able to take our power back from that way of being until we can fully see it, accept it, love it, offer it compassion, and understand it. And one of the greatest things that I received from this realization, from this practice, from this genuine uncovering and witnessing and acceptance and love and compassion of this part of myself, which is huge, by the way. Can we just start there and just say that it's huge to genuinely be able to really, really, really love the ugliest parts of yourself and to be so okay with it. Like, so okay with it. And as if that wasn't great enough a gift, I swear to God, it was one of the greatest shifts in the way that I saw other people in the world. Because it was like immediately this veil had dropped. And it was like, oh my God. Like, we're all just trying so fucking hard, and life is so hard. And we're just getting our ass kicked so much of the time. And we're having to, quote unquote, small self, having to keep us strong, keep us safe, keep us protected, keep us armed, do whatever. And then just looking around at all these people and all of the ways that we, quote unquote, or I don't even want to say quote unquote, the ways that we misbehave, the ways that we are gnarled, the ways that we are distorted, the ways that, it's like, it's awful. Again, back to this polarity. It's awful, and it's not an excuse. And like, God damn, we're all just so fucking broken. Like, we are. And if we're unable to offer that kind of acceptance and love for ourselves, we're not going to be able to do it for other people too. We're not. We're just not. And ultimately, also what we do then is we deny ourselves the opportunity for healing, for growth, for change, for transformation, for the gifts of all of that. We just do. Because if we can't have this level of acceptance and this level of deep, deep understanding and reverence and love, then how the fuck are we supposed to alchemize any of the shit that's going on in our lives? Or if we can't do it in our lives, how are we going to make a real change, right? So big moment for me, right? And let's pause again to feel. What are maybe things about yourself that you have a hard time looking at? That you have a hard time accepting? And what would it be like to invite those parts of you in? To get cozy with them and to get good with them. And not even just get good. Maybe you start there though, right? Maybe we just start there. And if you really feel like you can't bring the next level of acceptance or love or compassion or whatever it is, try bringing something greater, because here's a truth with a capital T. The divine, God, universe, nature, whatever you want to call it, it absolutely is not only capable, but does accept and love all of you, all expressions, all parts, all circumstances, all manifestations, all everything. It does. It It does, it does, it does, it does, it does. What doesn't are these small egoical selves. Let's see, where's next? So I continue along, now understanding like, okay, here's this part of myself. It's taught me some really big lessons. Now I get to be really discerning and intentional with my power. What am I giving my power to? Where am I not picking mine up? And so I continue along. And I want to say what's coming up is another big pivotal moment for me on my personal path of power was coming up against this decision for a priestess training with the same teacher in the same community, which up to that point, I had been waiting for one. Like, I knew it was something that they did and I had been waiting for it. I'm like, hell yeah, this is fucking, like, I'm made for this. Remember back to this, I'm made for this thing. Well, the opportunity finally comes. And now I'm sitting with this decision. And it's a big time commitment. It's a big energy commitment. It's a big financial commitment. And so really, really sitting with it, like, and I want to pause again because when I laugh because it's like when we come to big decisions in our life, ones that we know will have big effect in whatever big ways, it feels like it's more weighted, right? The decision is more weighted. And when it's more weighted, like, the bigger the decision, the bigger the consequence, be it positive or negative, I take those decisions very seriously. And because I clearly have a way of manipulating myself, I have to be so discerning. And so I'm sitting with this question and I'm like, I just want the soul truth. I just want the soul truth. I just want the truth that's in alignment with the highest and the best, my highest and best, because I also trust that what's in alignment with my highest and best is what's in alignment with the highest and best of everyone and everything else around me. So big question. I'm really sitting with it. I'm deep in practice right now, and I'm asking, like, please reveal to me the highest path forward. And I'm waiting and I'm discerning what's a thought, what's a small self-goal creation, like just waiting. And all of a sudden I'm flooded with visions of being at home, spaciousness, spending more time with my husband and my pets, gardening, tending to this business that I had just created, this community that I was cultivating, tending to my home. No part of that vision was a priestess training. And by the time it had played out and I realized that I was just literally shown the highest path forward, I questioned myself. I was like, wait, was that enough of an answer? So I was like, okay, let me just double check. And this time I very much intentionally played out, because that wasn't something I was playing out. It came to me. But now I was like, okay, well, let's just play out the other option and see what that feels like. We'll just play it out and I'll feel into it. So I'm playing it out, going through this priestess training, and it's absolutely, of course, full of growth and transformation and magic and awe and connection and deepening and all of the things. And by the time I get to the end of like my playing it out, what came was this question to myself. It was like I was talking to myself, and it was like, this was beautiful and powerful, and why did it take this? Why did it have to take this? ... for you too. step into your power, to do the thing, to give yourself permission to be who you are, to offer what you want to offer, just all the things. And it was then very clear. And I was like, wow. At this point on my path, after all of these years of studying and trainings and all of the things, I'm actually at a point where that isn't what most serves anymore. It was what most serves. It's how it got me to where I am. And if I was to have done that, it would have been another lesson in not continuing to give my power away. To just step into it now, to just take it now, because it's mine now. And so one of the greatest and most potent and powerful decisions that I had made was this remembering and reclaiming of like, oh, I'm actually just good. I'm ready now. Like, do it now. At this point, I'm already toward the end of the Shadow and Soul Lifestyle program. And not long after making this decision came through the next offering, which was my very own mystery school. And now, by the time that you're watching this, it has come to completion. Now I'm in mystery school, teaching, facilitating my own Shadow and Soul mystery school. And the two big things that we were working with those first couple of weeks, especially, I mean, working with the whole time, but really concentrated attention on it in the first couple of weeks, was what are our fears and our judgments around the mysteries, all that we consider to be the mysteries. And as I'm having them consider these things for themselves, I'm also considering, and one that came through really clear for me was that one of my greatest fears on this path is that I will fool myself. Just like I had, right? Ego disguising itself as soul. This fear that I will fool myself. And I want to say that, it's a valid fear. I feel like, to actually a certain extent, it's a helpful fear to have, because it makes me more disciplined in my discernment. And at the same time, again, back to this polarity, this and, yes, and I know that if I ever, I will, right? We're just human. I will fool myself again at some point. And it will be perfect and it will be divine to show me exactly the lesson that I need to have. That's my trust. That's my faith. Well, we're a couple weeks in, and I start to feel some familiar feelings that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And what were those feelings? Mostly insecurity. And I was like, oh God, like, not again. Because it's like that insecure feeling that I was feeling with that whole situation where I had reached out and found all these things about power and manipulation and fooling myself. Like, it was that kind of gnarly insecurity that I was feeling again. And I was like, oh no, like, what is happening? Talking to a dear soul friend. And I tell her, I think that there might be something happening here for me, that I feel like maybe there's some fear, some judgment around that I haven't yet seen, that is limiting my ability to facilitate the mysteries to its fullest. Like, there's something, I think there's something here. Now I'm in another conversation with another soul friend. And I'm telling her all of this. And again, back to this potency of sharing. Because as I'm sharing to her, the words fly out of my mouth. that one of my greatest fears on this path of facilitating is that my students and those in communion with me will try to give me their power, because I know what that feels like to give my power away. And I mean, as these words are coming out of my mouth, now by the time they finish coming out of my mouth, I'm like sobbing. Because it's like, whoa. My fear of having someone else give away their power to me was ultimately preventing me from stepping into my power in a way that best served this mystery container that I was holding. And I swear, y'all, it is just seeing these things that begins the process of healing, of alchemizing, of growth, of change, of transformation. Just seeing it begins the process. It doesn't instantly change it, although I don't want to, be limiting in an ability for something to instantly shift or change. For me, in this particular scenario, I still had to sit with those really gnarly feelings for a couple more days before they started to really alchemize within myself. And then it was this, like, okay, now I see this. Like, now that I am no longer unconsciously facilitating from this place of holding back because I'm afraid if I pick up my power, if I stand in my power, they're going to try to give their power away to me. If I can now see that, I can let it go. I don't have to move from that place. I can step into my power. I can pick up my power, and I can know that my reclaiming of my power does not result in the loss of power for someone else. It doesn't. And so another good pause point of, can you feel into the ways that you are afraid to step into your power for whatever reasons? Or in what ways do you give away your power? Again, back to this question, right? Like, such big, potent questions to lean into. Please lean into them. Let me pause and feel if there's anything else. I think that's it. I really think that's it. So just a big, big thank you for listening, and this invitation to sit with all the touch points of this conversation, from shame of self, shame of others, rejecting of self, rejecting of others, compassion and love for self, compassion and love for others, giving away your power, not stepping into your power, fears around power. I mean, just all of it. There's a lot here. So thank you so much for listening. If you feel to share any of your insights, I am all ears. I love this. And if this touched you, served you, inspired you, triggered you, because again, triggers are gifts in any way. The greatest way you can show your support, the greatest way you can offer gratitude, is to subscribe, to share with a friend, and to leave a rating and a review, so that we can spread more of this beautiful work into the world. Thank you so much. I so look forward to connecting with you in whatever ways I get to.